There is a dream you still remember. I don't know what it was, but I'd guess that somewhere in you right now, there's at least one, a dream from years ago, maybe decades ago, that never quite left. You could probably call it up if you tried. The place it happened, the feeling it left behind, the strange way it still seems to mean something, even though you've never been able to say what. And here's the thing that should stop us if we let it. You've had something like 100,000 dreams in your life, maybe more. Almost all of them are gone, vanished within minutes of waking, erased so completely it's as if they never happened at all. But not this one. This one stayed. This one followed you across years through every version of yourself you've been since, and it's still here tonight. Why? Why does almost every dream dissolve the instant you open your eyes, while a rare few sink in so deep they become part of you, as permanent as your realest memories, sometimes more permanent? That's the question I want to sit with you on tonight, not to explain dreams away. I don't think they can be explained away, and I'm not sure I'd want to. I just want to wonder about this one strange thing with you, slowly, in the quiet, the way you turn over a small object you found in an old coat pocket and can't quite remember keeping. Because the more I've sat with this question, the stranger it's become. It starts as a simple puzzle about memory, and it doesn't stay there. It opens, the way these things always seem to, into something much larger, into what dreams actually are, and what it means that your mind can build whole worlds in the dark, and finally into the oldest, deepest question of all: who is the one having the dream? But we'll get there slowly. Let's begin with the dream itself, the one you never forgot. Let me tell you about the kind of dream I mean, and see if it matches one of yours. It's not necessarily a dramatic dream. That's the first surprising thing. We assume the dreams that stay must be the nightmares, the big cinematic ones, and sometimes they are. But often the dream that lodges itself in you forever is quiet, strange in a small way, a particular room you've never been in, but somehow knew, a person standing in a doorway, a colour of light that doesn't exist anywhere in waking life. Nothing happens exactly, and yet it stayed while 1,000 more eventful nights washed away without a trace. Maybe yours is a place. A lot of people carry a dream place, a house, a landscape, a building that they've returned to more than once in dreams across their whole life. A place that doesn't exist, that they've never seen, and yet that feels more familiar than streets they've walked 100 times. People describe these with a strange tenderness. There's a house I dream about. It's not any house I've ever lived in, but I know it. I know which door sticks. I know what's at the top of the stairs, and they'll never go there again except in sleep, and they can't explain why it matters, and yet it does. It matters in a way that's hard to put beside anything in waking life. Maybe yours is a person, someone who appeared in a dream and felt utterly real, more themselves than a photograph could ever capture, and who you've carried ever since. Maybe someone you knew, maybe someone you've lost, maybe, strangely, someone you've never met at all, a face your mind invented from nothing, who nonetheless felt as known to you as anyone alive. Or maybe yours is just a feeling. Some dreams leave almost no images behind. You can't remember what happened in them at all, but they leave a mood that hangs over the entire next day, sometimes longer. You wake up grieving something you can't name, or filled with a joy that has no object, or homesick for a place you've never been. The dream is gone, but its emotional weather lingers, and you spend the morning quietly under its sky. I have one I've never been able to shake, and I'll tell you, because I think the specific ones land truer than the general descriptions. It's not dramatic. In the dream, I'm in a house I've never lived in, and it's late afternoon, and the light is coming through a window in a particular gold way, and I have the overwhelming sense that someone I love is in the next room, and that everything is, for once, completely all right. That's it. Nothing happens. I just stand in that gold light, knowing they're nearby, feeling that everything is well. And I've had versions of that dream for years, and every time, waking from it is like being gently evicted from somewhere I belonged. I've never understood it. I've stopped trying to, but it's as much a part of my inner life as almost any real memory I have. So that's the territory. And here's what makes it genuinely strange when you set it against what we know about how memory works. Memory is supposed to be about importance, about things that happened. Your mind sensibly holds on to events that matter for your survival and your life, where you live, who you love, what hurt you, what to avoid, and lets the rest go. That's why you remember your wedding and forget what you had for lunch 3 Tuesdays ago. Memory is triage. It keeps what counts. But a dream didn't happen. There was no event. Nothing in that gold-lit room was real. By every rule of how memory is supposed to work, that dream should have been the first thing discarded. A randomly generated, internally produced fiction with no survival value whatsoever. And instead it outlasted 10,000 real days. It's still here, decades on, while the actual Tuesdays of my actual life have vanished completely. Oh, that's the puzzle, laid bare. Your mind is a ruthless editor that throws away almost everything, including, normally, the dreams themselves, which it discards faster than almost any other kind of experience. And yet, every so often, it does the opposite. It takes one of these weightless, eventless, invented experiences and files it away under permanent, keeps it for life, treats a thing that never happened as more worth remembering than most of the things that did. Why? What is it about certain dreams that makes the editor stay its hand? What gets a dream past the gate that swallows almost all the others? To answer that, or at least to wonder about it well, we first have to understand the gate itself. We have to look at the strange, near-total forgetting that is the normal fate of nearly every dream you've ever had. Because the forgetting, it turns out, is the real default. The remembering is the exception that needs explaining. Let me show you how dreams normally disappear, because once you understand how completely your mind is built to erase them, the fact that any survive at all starts to seem like a small miracle. Here's a fact that sounds made up but isn't. You dream every night, for hours, whether you remember it or not. Most of us think of ourselves as people who don't really dream, or who dream only occasionally, but that's almost certainly false. The sleep research is quite clear on this. Virtually everyone dreams, every night, multiple times. You cycle through dreaming sleep several times before morning, and in a full night, you may spend a couple of hours in it. Over a lifetime, that adds up to years. Years of vivid, lived, often elaborate experience, and you remember essentially none of it. Think about how strange that is. There is no other category of experience your mind treats this way. You don't spend years of your waking life having rich, detailed adventures and then forget all of them. But that's exactly what happens at night. An enormous, ongoing second life of experience, and the door closes on almost all of it the instant you wake. Studies suggest we forget something like 95% of our dreams within minutes of waking, often within seconds. You know the feeling. You surface from a dream that was, a moment ago, completely absorbing. And even as you reach for it, it's draining away. Like water through cupped hands. The harder you grab, the faster it goes. Within a few breaths, there's nothing left but the faint knowledge that there was something, and then sometimes, not even that. So the real question isn't only why do some dreams stay, it's also why do almost all of them go? And the answer to that second question turns out to be genuinely interesting, because it isn't an accident. Your brain isn't failing to remember dreams. As far as we can tell, it's actively built not to. Let me explain what seems to be going on, and I'll keep it gentle, because the mechanism matters less than the strangeness it reveals. When you're dreaming, during the sleep stage often called REM, for the rapid eye movements that flicker behind your closed lids, your brain is in a chemically different state than when you're awake, and one of the key differences involves the particular chemicals that help lay down long-term memories. During dreaming sleep, the levels of some of those memory-fixing chemicals drop way down. The brain region most involved in forming new lasting memories is, in a sense, running in a very different mode, active, but not in the way it would need to be to write the experience permanently to disk. So the dream plays out in full, vivid, and complete, but the machinery that would normally record it for the long term is mostly switched off. You're having the experience without saving the file. It's like watching a film in a cinema where the projector works perfectly, but there's no recording device running. The show is real, complete, fully experienced, and then it's simply gone, because nothing was ever set up to keep it. And there's a second layer, which is about waking up. The dreams we do tend to catch are almost always the ones we wake up during, or immediately after. If you wake straight out of a dream, you might hold it for a little while, long enough sometimes to tell someone, or to write it down before it fades. But if a dream happens in the middle of the night, and you sleep on through it into other stages of sleep, it's gone before morning ever arrives. It was never even a candidate for memory. The vast majority of your dreams are like this, happening in a sealed room you pass through without ever knowing you were there. Now, why would we be built this way? Why would evolution design a mind that has hours of experience a night and then deletes nearly all of it? Nobody knows for certain, but the leading guesses are quietly fascinating. One idea is that it would actually be a problem to remember dreams too well. Imagine if your dream memories were stored with the same vividness and permanence as your real ones. Your memory would fill up with events that never happened, people you never met, places that don't exist, conversations that were never had. Over a lifetime, you'd accumulate a vast archive of fictional experiences, increasingly tangled up with the real ones, until you couldn't reliably tell what had actually happened to you and what your sleeping brain had invented. The forgetting, in this view, isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's how your mind protects the integrity of your actual life story, by keeping the nightly fictions from contaminating the record. I find that explanation both satisfying and a little haunting, because it means forgetting your dreams is, in a sense, an act of self-protection. Your mind is guarding the border between what happened and what didn't. Every morning, it quietly takes out the night's inventions and discards them, so that you, the continuous person with a coherent history, can stay intact. But that makes the dreams that survive even stranger, doesn't it? Because if forgetting is the default, if the border guard is that vigilant, if nearly every dream gets swept out with the morning, then the rare dream that makes it through has somehow gotten past all of that. It's been waved across the border, marked as something to keep, filed alongside the real memories, the ones that actually happened, as if your mind had decided, wrongly, by its own rules, that this fiction counted as real life. What could make a dream important enough to keep when the whole system is designed to throw dreams away? What flag gets raised on that one night that doesn't get raised on the thousands of others? And here the science gives us a real and beautiful clue. Because there's one thing above all that tells the memory system, keep this matters. One signal that overrides the discarding, that flags an experience as worth preserving, whether it happened in waking life or in a dream. That signal is emotion, and I think understanding how emotion stamps a memory into permanence is the key to the whole mystery. Let me show you. Think about your own real memories for a moment, the waking ones, the ones from your actual life. Notice which ones are vivid and which ones are gone. You'll find almost certainly that the vivid ones are the emotional ones. The day something frightening happened, the moment you fell in love or had your heart broken, a death, a birth, a humiliation you still wince at 20 years later, a moment of unexpected, overwhelming beauty. These are the memories that stayed sharp, that you can still walk around inside, still feel in your body, while the 10,000 neutral days in between have blurred into nothing. This isn't an accident, and it isn't just you. It's how memory is built. Emotion is the marker. When something happens that carries a strong feeling, fear, love, grief, awe, your brain does something specific. The emotional centers light up, and they essentially flag the experience. This one matters. Write it down. Keep it. Emotionally charged events get encoded more deeply, consolidated more strongly, and recalled more vividly than neutral ones. Feeling is the ink that makes a memory permanent. You can sense the logic of it. For a creature trying to survive, the emotional events are exactly the ones worth remembering. The dangers, the bonds, the rewards, the losses. The neutral middle is safe to forget. So evolution wired us to hold tight to whatever made us feel, and to let the rest slip away. Emotion is your mind's way of deciding what counts. And now, bring that back to dreams. Suddenly the whole mystery starts to come into focus, because most dreams are emotionally flat. Strange, yes, but not deeply felt. You're doing some odd dream task, wandering through some shifting dream place, and there's no powerful emotion attached. The feeling meter never spikes. And so, by the same rule that governs all memory, those dreams don't get flagged. No emotion, no ink, no permanence. They wash away with everything else neutral, which in dreams, as in waking life, is almost everything. But every so often, a dream carries real emotion, genuine terror, overwhelming love, piercing grief, a wonder so large it aches. And when that happens, the same machinery that stamps your real emotional memories into permanence does its work. Except now, it's working on a dream. The emotional centers light up, the flag goes up, the experience gets marked keep, and a fiction gets filed away with all the force and permanence of your most important real memories. That's why the dreams that stay are the ones that moved you, not the most eventful, the most felt. The dream where you wept, the dream where you were more afraid than you'd ever been, the dream of overwhelming peace or love or reunion. The emotion is the thing that got it past the border guard. The feeling is why it's still here. And this explains something that might have puzzled you about your own kept dreams, that they're often not dramatic in their content at all. My gold-lit room, where nothing happens, someone's quiet dream house, a particular face. The content is unremarkable, but the feeling was enormous, and it's the feeling, not the content, that memory records. A dream can be almost empty of events and still be saturated with emotion, and it's the emotional saturation that buys it permanence. That's why you can carry a dream forever in which, on paper, nothing occurred. Something occurred. You felt something hugely, and your mind wrote the feeling down. There's a deeper layer here too that I find genuinely moving. Some researchers think that one of the things dreams are for, one of the jobs of all that nightly experience, is emotional processing. The idea is that during dreaming sleep, the brain takes the emotional residue of our waking lives, the worries, the griefs, the unresolved feelings, and works them over, replays them, recombines them in a kind of overnight digestion. Dreaming, in this view, is partly how we metabolize what we feel, how we take the raw, painful, unprocessed emotion of being alive and slowly turn it into something we can carry. There's a striking detail that supports this, if you've ever noticed it in yourself. People often dream most intensely about the things they haven't finished feeling. The relationship that ended badly comes back, night after night, in disguised forms, long after you thought you were over it. The grief you never fully let yourself feel in daylight finds you in the dark instead. The exam you failed, the argument you lost, the version of an event where you finally said the thing you didn't say. The mind returns to these again and again, as if working a knot loose. And there's a real theory that this is exactly what dreaming is doing, revisiting the charged, unresolved material and slowly, over many nights, draining some of the rawness out of it. That the strange, repetitive, emotionally heavy dreams are the mind's way of healing in the only workshop it has that's free of consequences. A place where it can run the painful scenario 100 times, at no cost, until it stings a little less. And that may be why so many of the dreams we keep are recurring ones, the same dream, or the same kind of dream, returning across years. We tend to think recurring dreams are trying to tell us something, and maybe in a sense they are. They may be marking the places where the emotional work isn't finished, the wound that hasn't closed, the feeling that hasn't been fully felt. A recurring dream might be less a message than a symptom, the visible sign of the mind returning, faithfully, to the same unhealed place, the way your tongue keeps finding the sawtooth, which would mean the dreams that stay with us longest are very often the ones attached to what we've carried longest. The dream is permanent because the feeling underneath it never quite resolved. And if that's even partly true, then the emotional dreams that stay with us might be the ones where that processing was happening most intensely. The nights when the mind was doing its deepest work on something that mattered to us. The dream of the person you lost wasn't random. It was your mind in the dark, doing the work of grief. And the reason it stayed is that the work was real, and the feeling was real, even though the events were not. The dream was a place where you did something genuinely important. No wonder it left a mark. In a sense, it earned one. But notice, and this is where the simple, satisfying explanation starts to crack open into something larger. Notice that all of this still doesn't quite reach the strangest part. We've explained why emotional dreams get remembered. The emotion flags them, the machinery keeps them. Good. That's a real answer, and it's true as far as it goes. But it doesn't explain the emotion itself. It doesn't explain why a dream could make you feel something that large in the first place. Why a person who doesn't exist, in a place that isn't real, in events that never happened, can produce grief or love or wonder as powerful as anything in waking life, sometimes more powerful. The explanation tells us that strong feeling gets remembered. It doesn't tell us how a fiction your own mind generated, out of nothing, in the dark, can move you as deeply as your actual life can, sometimes more deeply. And that points at something the memory science can't touch, because to feel something that real, you have to be somewhere that feels real. The dream has to be, while you're in it, a genuine world, convincing enough to grieve in, to love in, to be terrified in. And that's the next strange thing we have to look at. Not why we remember dreams, but what a dream actually is while we're inside it. How it manages to be, for as long as it lasts, completely and utterly real. Because that, the sheer convincing reality of the dream world, built nightly by your own mind, is where this stops being a question about memory and starts becoming a question about something much deeper. Here is the thing about dreams that I genuinely cannot get past, no matter how long I sit with it. While you're inside a dream, it is completely real to you. Not sort of real, not real enough, completely real. You believe it without the faintest doubt. The most absurd, impossible things happen, and you accept them entirely. The dead are alive again, and you're not surprised. You can breathe underwater, and you don't question it. The geography makes no sense, the timeline folds back on itself, people change into other people mid-conversation, and your dreaming mind takes all of it in stride, as the most natural thing in the world. Your critical faculty, the part of you that in waking life would say, wait, this is impossible, it's switched off, and so you wander through sheer impossibility as though it were an ordinary afternoon. Think about what that actually means. Every night, your mind builds a world so convincing that you live inside it without question. Fully rendered, sights, sounds, textures, the press of a floor under your feet, the warmth of light, the faces of people, their voices, the emotional weight of being with them. A complete reality, generated from nothing, in the dark, while your body lies still and your eyes are closed, and you don't experience it as a production, as a thing being made. You experience it as simply the world, as where you are. We are so used to this that we've stopped finding it astonishing. But step back for a moment. You have, inside your skull, the ability to generate an entire convincing universe, populated, detailed, emotionally real, obeying its own strange logic, and to place yourself inside it so completely that you forget any other world exists. You do this every single night. It's one of the most extraordinary capacities you have, and you think of it as just dreaming. And here's a detail that makes it stranger still. The dream world is often rendered in a richness you couldn't consciously produce if you tried. People who become aware inside their dreams, lucid dreamers, who realize they're dreaming and can then look around with waking awareness, describe examining things up close, the grain of wood on a table, the text on a page, the individual leaves on a tree, and they report a level of detail that no deliberate imagination could ever generate on command. Try right now, awake, to imagine a tree in full, every leaf distinct, the bark's exact texture, the play of light through the branches. You can't hold it. It blurs, it simplifies, it slips. And yet some part of you, asleep, builds exactly that effortlessly, in full resolution, every night, and then populates it, and animates it, and runs a coherent story through it, and convinces you it's real. Who is doing that? It's you. Obviously, it's you. Who else could it be? And yet it's a you that you have no conscious access to, that can do things the waking you cannot, that knows how to render a world you couldn't consciously draw. There's a craftsman in there, working in the dark, far more capable than the self you think you are. And you never meet them. You only ever see their finished work, from the inside, believing it's the world. Then there's the matter of time, and this is one of the strangest things of all, and it connects to something many of us have felt. Time doesn't behave inside a dream. You can live what feels like hours, a whole journey, a long conversation, an entire stretch of a life, and wake to find that only a few minutes have passed. Whole dream afternoons, dream relationships, sometimes what feels like dream years, unfolding in the time it takes the clock by your bed to tick a little way forward. The mind, freed from the steady, external beat of the real world, runs time at its own rate, stretches it, folds it, generates as much experience duration as it likes out of a few minutes of sleep. Sit with what that implies. The amount of time you experience is not fixed to the amount of time that actually passes. Your mind can manufacture the felt experience of hours out of minutes, which means that in a single ordinary night, you might live through far more experience time than the clock would ever credit you with. And across a lifetime of nights, all those stretched and folded dream hours add up to something, a vast quantity of lived experience that exists nowhere, on any clock, that no calendar counts, that belongs to you and only you. It's one of the quiet ways your single life turns out to hold more than a single lifetime seems able to. You've been living extra time in the dark all along, time that doesn't show up in your age, that no one else can see, generated freely by a mind that doesn't answer to the clock. And now we arrive at the thought that this whole section has been circling. The one I have to say carefully because it's the hinge of everything. If your mind can generate an entire reality, convincing, detailed, emotionally complete, with its own time and its own world, every single night from nothing, then what exactly is the mind? What is this thing inside you that can build worlds? We tend to think of consciousness as a kind of window, a way of looking out at the real world that exists outside us, a receiver, picking up the broadcast of reality. But the dream shows us that consciousness is not only a receiver, it's also a generator. It can produce a complete world all by itself, with no input from outside, and make that world utterly convincing. The same faculty that shows you this room can build a room that doesn't exist and put you in it without your noticing the difference. And if that's true, if consciousness is the kind of thing that can generate a whole reality from the inside, then a strange question opens underneath the floor of everything. Because the waking world, too, only ever reaches you as experience, as something rendered inside your consciousness. You've never touched the world directly, only your mind's rendering of it. So what exactly is the difference between the world? Your mind builds at night, and the world it builds by day. One takes its cues from outside and one doesn't, but both are productions of the same world-building mind, presented to the same inner witness. I want to be careful here, because this is exactly the kind of place where it would be easy to spin off into something grand and untethered. I'm not going to tell you that waking life is a dream, or that nothing is real. I don't believe that, and I don't think anyone actually knows it. The waking world behaves far too consistently, is shared with too many other people, pushes back too reliably to be dismissed as a dream. But I will say, the gentler, stranger, truer thing. The dream proves beyond any doubt that your mind is capable of generating a reality so complete, you'll live inside it without question. That capacity is real. You demonstrate it every night. And once you know your mind can do that, can build a convincing world from the inside, you can never again be quite so sure that the line between real and experienced is as solid as it feels. The dream has shown you the edge of something, a loose thread in the fabric of the obvious. I'm not going to pull that thread all the way tonight. There's a place where it leads that's far larger than a single video about dreams can hold, and we'll come to the doorway of it before the end. For now, I just want you to hold the strange fact in your hands, that you are the kind of being who builds worlds in the dark, and lives in them, and believes them. That's not a small thing to be. That's one of the deepest facts about what you are, and it leads naturally to the dreams that feel like the most important thing that ever happened to us, even though, by every ordinary measure, nothing happened at all. The dreams that feel bigger than dreams. Let me take you there. There's a category of dream that almost everyone has had at least once, and that almost no one quite knows how to talk about. The dream that didn't feel like a dream at all. That felt, while it was happening, and sometimes long after, like something more, like a visit, a glimpse, a message, an experience realer than real. I want to be careful and honest about these, because they're exactly the dreams that get wrapped in supernatural explanations, and I don't think we need those explanations to feel the full weight of how strange and moving these dreams are. They're extraordinary enough as human experiences. We don't have to make them into anything else. The most common one, and if you've lost someone, you may know it intimately, is the dream where the dead are alive again. Not as ghosts, not as anything spooky, just there, ordinary, alive, present, exactly as they were. In the kitchen, on the phone, beside you. And in the dream, you're not even surprised. You don't think but you died. You just talk to them. You're with them easily, the way you were 1,000 times when they were alive. And it's so plain, so undramatic, so real, that it doesn't feel like a dream at all. It feels like they came back, like you were given, for a few minutes, the thing you'd have given anything for. One more ordinary moment with them. And then you wake, and there's a second, just a second, before the truth arrives. A soft, unguarded second where they're still alive, because your mind hasn't yet reloaded the fact of their death. And then it does. It always does. And you lose them again, quietly, alone, in the first grey light before you've even sat up. I don't know anything that captures the strange power of dreams more completely than that. And I don't think it's a message from beyond. And I don't think you have to believe it is for it to matter enormously. Here's what I think it actually is, and to me the real version is more astonishing than the supernatural one. Your mind held them so completely, their face, their voice, the exact way they said your name, the precise weight of their presence, that it could rebuild them from the inside, in full, and let them live again for a few minutes in the dark. The person you lost is not entirely gone. Some detailed living model of them is still in you, intact enough that your sleeping mind can call them up and let them walk and speak and be themselves. That's not nothing. That's one of the most extraordinary things a mind can do. We carry the people we love as more than memory. We carry them as someone our mind can become, can reanimate, can be with again. And in those dreams, your single life briefly holds more than itself. It holds the dead, alive again. It holds a reunion the waking world says is impossible. For those few minutes, existence is larger than the one life you're living, wide enough to fit someone time already took away. And I think this is also, quietly, one of the clearest answers to the question we started with, why some dreams never leave us. Of course these dreams stay. Of course they're among the most permanent we have. Every force we've talked about converges on them. The emotion is overwhelming, so the memory gets stamped in deep. The mind is doing its most important work, the work of grief, of holding on, of slowly learning to live without. So the dream is anything but trivial. And the feeling left behind is so large that it colours days, sometimes weeks. A dream like that isn't a random firing in the dark. It's the mind doing something it cares about more than almost anything else. Keeping someone. No wonder it lasts a lifetime. It's made of the most permanent material we have, which is love that has nowhere left to go. There's a particular kindness in these dreams that I've come to be grateful for, even with the ache of the waking that follows. Because grief in waking life is so often about absence, the empty chair, the unanswered question, the thousand small daily reminders that someone is simply not there anymore. But in the dream, for a few minutes, the absence is lifted. They're not gone. They're here, ordinary and whole, and you get to be with them with none of the weight of knowing. It's the one place the loss doesn't reach. And I've come to think that even the brutal second of waking, the re-loss, the truth crashing back, even that might be part of something the mind is doing for us. A way of letting us feel the love again, fully, undiluted by grief, just for a moment, before handing the grief gently back, as if some part of us in the dark is determined to keep giving us what we lost, again and again, for as long as we can still remember how they said our name. Then there are the dreams of impossible places that feel like home. I mentioned the dream houses earlier, the places we return to in sleep that don't exist, that we've never seen, and yet that feel more familiar, sometimes, than where we actually live. People who have these often describe a strange grief about them, a homesickness for somewhere that isn't real, as if part of them lives in a place they can only reach asleep, and every morning they're exiled from it again. What are those places? I don't think anyone knows. They may be composites, your mind stitching together fragments of every place you've ever felt safe into a single archetypal home. They may be something stranger, but notice the feeling they produce, belonging, a sense of rightness, of being where you're meant to be, that waking life rarely matches. Your mind built a place where you belong utterly, and it lives in you, and you visit it in the dark, and you carry the ache of it through your days. And then there's the strangest feeling of all, the one that's almost impossible to describe to someone who hasn't felt it. The dream, or sometimes the moment in a dream, that arrives wrapped in overwhelming significance. A sense that what's happening matters enormously, cosmically, beyond anything in ordinary life. You may not even be able to say what the dream was about, but the feeling of meaning is crushing, total, realer than any meaning you encounter awake. You wake convinced you've been shown something, and unable to say what. I've had these and I've never known what to do with them. The honest, grounded view is that the brain in certain states can generate the feeling of significance directly, that meaning, like fear or joy, is something the mind can produce, and that in a dream it can be switched on full without needing any actual meaningful content to attach to. The feeling of profundity, unhooked from anything profound. That's probably what's happening, and yet knowing that does almost nothing to reduce the power of it. You can know intellectually that the overwhelming significance was just your mind generating the sensation of significance, and still wake up changed by it, still carry it for years, still feel, against all reason, that you were shown something true. And maybe that's the deepest clue these bigger-than-dreams are offering us. Not a message from beyond, but a revelation about ourselves. They show us that the feelings we take to be responses to the world, meaning belonging, reunion, love, awe, are things the mind can generate entirely from within. That the sense of reality, the sense of significance, the sense of being in the presence of someone we love, are all in the end produced inside us. Usually, they're produced in response to something real, but the dream proves they don't have to be. The mind can conjure them from nothing, which means these feelings, which we trust as our most direct contact with what's real and what matters, these too are renderings. Productions of the same world-building, feeling-generating mind. I find that humbling rather than deflating, because it means the capacity for meaning, for love, for the sense of the sacred lives inside you, not out in the world, waiting to be found, but in you, ready to be generated. The dream is proof of how much is already within, and it raises, more sharply than anything else we've touched tonight, the question we've been circling from the start. Because all of this, the reunions, the impossible homes, the crushing significance, the whole convincing world, all of it is appearing to someone, being experienced by someone. There's a witness in the dream, the one to whom all of it is happening. And that witness is the same one who's awake right now, listening to this. Who is that? Who is the one who dreams? Let's go there. Every night you go somewhere. The world dissolves, your body lies still, and yet you, some you, are off in another world entirely, seeing, feeling, living. And then in the morning you come back and reassemble and become the daytime person again. And we treat this as utterly ordinary, but sit with it, and it's one of the strangest features of being alive. That there is a you that persists across the boundary between waking and dreaming. A continuity of awareness that survives the nightly dissolution of the entire world. Think about what actually happens when you dream. The waking world is gone completely. Your bedroom, your body, your name, your whole life, all of it switched off and absent. And in its place, an entirely different world, with you somewhere inside it. Different surroundings, sometimes a different body, sometimes barely a sense of a body at all. And yet, something is the same. Something carries across. There is still a someone, a witness, a point of view from which it's all being experienced. The contents changed completely. The whole world was swapped out. And still there was a you there to experience the new one. That's worth dwelling on, because it's the same strange continuity we feel across our whole lives, just compressed into a single night. We've talked before on this channel about how the one thing that never seems to change across a lifetime, while the body, the memories, the beliefs all turn over completely, is the bare fact of being a witness. The sense of looking out from behind your own eyes, and here is that same witness, persisting even across the total replacement of the world that happens every night when you fall asleep. The dream you and the waking you are somehow the same one. The same awareness looking out, whether the world it's looking at is the real one or one your mind made up. And this raises a question I find genuinely vertiginous. In a dream, the entire world is generated by your mind. The rooms, the people, the sky, the ground, all of it your own production. But the one experiencing that world, the witness, the dreamer, doesn't feel generated. It feels like it's just there, the same as ever, watching. The dream world is made. The dream watcher seems to simply be. So here's the strange part. When you're awake, you assume the witness, the you looking out, is a product of the world, a result of your brain, which is a part of the physical world, doing its physical thing. The world comes first and consciousness arises inside it. But in the dream, It's the other way around. The witness is there, and the world is the production. Consciousness comes first, and the world appears inside it. Which way is it really? In the dream, undeniably, the witnessing comes first, and the world is generated around it. Could it be that something similar is true even when we're awake? That the witness is, in some sense, more fundamental than the world it finds itself in? I'm not claiming that. I genuinely don't know. But the dream is the one place where we get to feel directly, from the inside, what it's like for consciousness to be the thing that comes first, with the whole world arranged downstream of it. And once you've felt that, the ordinary assumption that you're a small product of a vast external world stops feeling quite so obvious. There's something else about the dreamer that I keep returning to. In most dreams, you don't know you're dreaming. The witness is fully taken in, fully convinced, embedded in the dream world without any awareness that it's a dream. But occasionally, in those lucid moments, the witness wakes up inside the dream, suddenly knows, becomes aware of itself as the one experiencing, while the dream goes on around it. And in that moment, nothing about the world changes. The dream looks exactly the same, but everything about your relationship to it changes. You go from being lost in the production to knowing you're the one it's appearing to. I think that small shift, from being lost in the experience to becoming aware of yourself as the experiencer, might be one of the most important moves a consciousness can make. And it's not limited to dreams. You can do it right now, awake. Most of the time, you're lost in the world, absorbed in your tasks, your thoughts, the contents of experience. But every so often, awake, the same thing happens that happens in a lucid dream. You suddenly notice that you're experiencing, that there's a witness here, behind everything, to whom all of this is appearing. The room, this voice, your own thoughts, all of it showing up for someone. For you, the one who's always been here, looking out. And in that moment, waking life and dreaming life rhyme in a way that's hard to unsee. In both, there's a world appearing. In both, there's a witness it appears to. In both, the witness can be either lost in the show or quietly aware of itself watching. The dream and the waking world start to look less like opposites and more like two performances in the same theatre, played to the same silent audience of one. So who is the dreamer? Who is the one who watches the dream and watches the waking world and persists across the boundary between them, unchanged, the same witness in both? That, I think, is the real question hiding underneath why do some dreams stay with us? Because the dreams that stay are the ones that the witness felt most deeply, and the witness, that one who feels and watches and persists, is the deepest mystery of all, not the dreams, the dreamer. And I have to be honest with you, I can't tell you who that is. Nobody can yet. We do not have an explanation for the witness. For the bare fact that there's someone home, that experience is happening to anyone at all. It's the oldest and hardest question there is, and will only stand at its doorway tonight. But I wanted you to see that it was here, all along, underneath the simple question we started with. You pull on the thread of, why do I still remember that dream? And at the other end of it is the deepest question a conscious being can ask. What is the thing that's doing the remembering, the dreaming, the experiencing? What is the witness made of? Where did it come from? And why is there one at all? Let me gather what we've found, because the path we've walked tonight has quietly led somewhere much larger than where it began. We started with a small, almost ordinary puzzle. Why do some dreams stay with us when almost all of them vanish? And we found a real answer, as far as it goes. Most dreams are forgotten by design, the mind built to sweep its nightly fictions away each morning, protecting the border between what happened and what didn't. And the rare dream that survives is the one that carried real emotion, because emotion is the ink that makes any memory permanent, dream or waking alike. But every time we reached the edge of that answer, it opened onto something deeper. Why can a dream produce emotion that large in the first place, because the dream is, while you're in it, a completely convincing world. And how can your mind build a completely convincing world from nothing every night? Because consciousness is not only a window onto reality, it's a generator of reality, able to produce a whole world from the inside. And if consciousness can do that, then what is consciousness? And who is the one inside the dream, experiencing the world your mind has made? And why is that one the same as the one who's awake right now? Each answer was a door, and each door opened onto a larger room, until we found ourselves standing in front of the largest question there is, not about dreams at all, but about the dreamer, about consciousness itself, about the strange fact that there is anyone here to have any of this happen to. And I think that's what dreams are quietly revealing if we let them. Not secrets about the future, not messages from beyond. Something stranger and closer to home. They're showing us every single night the most astonishing fact about ourselves. A fact so constant and so familiar that we've gone blind to it. That we are the kind of being that generates worlds. That inside each of us is something that can build a complete, convincing, emotionally real universe out of nothing, and place a witness inside it and run it through the night. That we do this effortlessly, nightly, without instruction, and have done it our whole lives. The dream is proof, delivered fresh every morning, that consciousness is far stranger and more powerful and more mysterious than we treat it as being. And it shows us something else too, something about the reality we take for granted in the daytime. Because if the felt reality of a world can be generated entirely from within, then the solidity of our waking world, its utter convincing there-ness, is at least partly something we're bringing to it, not just something we're finding. We are not passive observers of a finished reality. We are, in some real and nightly demonstrated sense, participants in the rendering of whatever world we find ourselves in. The dream is the proof, the clean experiment, the thing that shows us what the mind can do when it builds a world alone. And it should change, just slightly, how we hold the world we wake into, with a little more wonder at the fact that we're experiencing it at all, that there's an inside to our lives, that the lights are on. I don't have a conclusion for you. I promised myself I wouldn't pretend to. Dreams remain, even after everything we've said, deeply mysterious, and the dreamer more mysterious still. We've explained a little of the machinery and brushed against the enormous thing the machinery is part of. And that enormous thing remains unsolved, possibly unsolvable, certainly far beyond the edge of what a single night's wondering can hold. But maybe that's right. Maybe these are questions to be lived with rather than answered, carried, turned over slowly, the way you carry that one dream that never left you. Not problems waiting for solutions, companions for the long walk. The not knowing isn't a failure here. It might be the most alive part of being a creature who dreams. So let me leave the question where I found it, but turned over now, showing a different face than it showed at the start. We began by asking why some dreams stay with us forever, and we found that emotion is the thread, that the dream which moved us are the ones that lasted, because feeling is how the mind marks anything as worth keeping. That's true, and it's a real answer, and if it's all you carry away from tonight, it's a good thing to understand about yourself. That the dreams you've kept are the ones where you felt something real, even in a world that wasn't. But somewhere along the way, the question quietly became a different one. It stopped being about which dreams we keep, and became about the stranger fact underneath, that we dream at all, that the mind can build a world, that there's a witness inside it, that the same witness is here, now, awake, listening. The dreams that stay turned out to be a small doorway into the largest mystery there is, the mystery of consciousness itself, generating worlds in the dark, and somehow being there to experience them. And maybe that's the most remarkable thing of all, not that some dreams stay with us, though that's strange and beautiful enough, the most remarkable thing might be the bare fact that consciousness can generate entire worlds at all. That inside your skull every night, a complete reality blooms out of nothing, convincing enough to live in, to grieve in, to love in, that you are the kind of thing that can do that. We spend so much energy wondering what our dreams mean. Perhaps the deeper wonder is simply that we can dream, that there's an inside to us vast enough to hold whole worlds, and a witness awake enough to walk through them. So the next time you wake from a dream that stays with you, one of the ones that won't let go, that hangs over your morning, that you'll still be carrying in 20 years, I hope you feel, underneath whatever else it stirs, a flicker of that wonder. Not just what did it mean, but look what I can do, look what I am, a creature that builds worlds in the dark and lives in them and feels them as real. The dream is strange, but the dreamer is the miracle. I'll be honest with you about something now that we're near the end. This question, why some dreams stay, was for me a doorway. I came to it the way you probably did, just noticing that I'd carried certain dreams for years and wondering why. But the deeper I followed it, the more it opened onto other questions, larger ones, the kind I couldn't put down once I'd noticed them. Because once you've really felt that your mind builds the dream world, and that the same awareness watches both the dream and the waking world, you start to notice things you can't unnotice. And you start asking questions you never thought to ask, and the questions fold back on each other, each one opening the next. If consciousness can generate an entire convincing reality from the inside every night, then why does waking reality feel so much more real than a dream? What actually makes the difference? And how would you ever know from the inside which one you are in? If the witness inside a dream is the same witness that's awake right now, then why does that awareness feel separate from the world it watches, like a viewer in a theatre rather than a part of the show? If dreams can feel more vivid, more meaningful, more real than ordinary waking life, then what is reality actually made of? And why does the mind get to decide how real something feels? And underneath all of them, the question that came to haunt me most: why does existence feel larger than a single lifetime? Why does it feel, in certain dreams, the reunion with someone gone, the impossible home, the years that pass in a single night, as though there's more to us and more to existence than one waking life seems able to hold? Those questions led me somewhere much larger than this one ever could. They led me deep into consciousness and into dreams and into the strange foundations of reality itself, into the deepest and most genuinely unsolved mystery I know of. I made a much longer journey about exactly that, about what consciousness might actually be, and whether it's connected to the fabric of reality in ways we're only beginning to glimpse, about dreams and the self, and that persistent feeling that existence is somehow bigger than the years we're given. It goes much deeper into everything we only stood at the doorway of tonight: the witness, the worlds the mind can build, the line between the real and the experienced. It's the natural next chapter to this one, where this conversation was quietly heading the whole time. It's called What If Quantum Consciousness is Real? The hidden link between dreams and reality. If tonight stirred something in you, if you recognized your own kept dreams in any of this, or felt that flicker of wonder at the dreamer behind them, then that's where I'd go next. It picks up right where we're standing now. Because if consciousness turns out to be more fundamental than we tend to assume, then dreams might not be the small, nightly curiosities we take them for. They might be one of the most honest glimpses we ever get of what we actually are. But for now, here, this is enough. We followed one quiet question: why a few dreams refuse to leave us, and we found, at the bottom of it, the strange and astonishing fact that you are a being who dreams worlds into existence, and is there, awake inside the dark, to walk through them. Thank you for wondering with me tonight. The questions will keep. They were here long before this, and they'll be waiting whenever you want to pick them up again. There's no hurry. And tonight, when you fall asleep, when the world dissolves and your mind begins, once again, to build another one, maybe you'll cross that threshold with a little more wonder at what you're about to do, at the worlds you're about to make, at the dreamer you're about to be. Sleep well, and if a dream stays with you, you'll know now that you were never the only one who wondered why. Good night.